Welcome. Today on the podcast, I have an interview with my friend, Joe Casey. Welcome to the show, Joe.
Thank you. So we're giggling just because it's just been one of those weeks and we've just had that,
Yes.
all the things about being a parent and business owner and technology and
And can we just, since this is airing in 2017, can we just say adios 2016?
Oh, go to hell 2016.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
Keep cleansing breath for all the possibilities that lie ahead.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Wow. That was a doozy, wasn't it? That was
Yeah. It really, I mean, there's just not words. We lost too many people, too much weird, unfortunate stuff happened. And
with ramifications for years to come. But, we're kind of recording this end of December. There's,
right.
anything could happen in the meantime,
even on Monday, right?
Yes.
Yeah, it's good to give that context. Like, our electorate has not voted in the U.S. yet, so we don't even know what that brings.
Yeah. It just has just been the weirdest year. It was like everything seemed to get tipped up on its head. It was, lots of certainties that we kind of thought were there. We're just like, no. Yeah, and not in a good way.
Right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we're holding space for good things to come.
Yes, for sure.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about, what did you love as a child? What were your earliest sparks of joy?
My earliest sparks of joy. Well, I can remember really distinctly being out in the garden with my dad. So my dad has always loved gardening. And even when we had no money at all, he would always make sure that we had a house that had some kind of a garden. If it was just like the tiniest little garden. And so I can remember kind of going out and kind of like digging in the dirt with him. And that's still kind of a big part of my life. I still really like being out in the garden and planting things and creating something with nature. And I love the fact that you can't rush it, because I'm somebody who, I would rush through everything if I could, when I was 13, I so desperately wanted to be 19 and all of that stuff. And I love the fact that you plant something in the ground and, you can't make it grow any faster. Damn it. Yeah. And it kind of teaches you patience. And so that's something that always gives me joy.
Yeah. I love a good garden as well. And there's something about taking pictures of flowers even to this day where each of them has their own little face, but it's such a delight and a creation that that end of it too is so special.
And the detail. And I think one of the things that is always such a great reminder to me is to just stop and just sort of look at some of the detail around you, like some of the real beautiful things. So I run a coaching business, obviously, but I also I teach mindfulness. I have this great gig where I don't know, about 10 days a year, I go into corporations or factories. I've done it in factories. I've done it in, big organizations, small organizations. I've done it for a group of vets, and they brought dogs into the room. And I teach people mindfulness for people who wouldn't normally be caught dead doing things like mindfulness, because that's how I was. So one of the things that I get people to do is I ask them just after lunch to go for a mindful walk. And so quite often these places are not in the most attractive parts of the world. They're either in the middle of industrial estates or in the middle of, the business districts in cities and things. And people come back and wax lyrical about, I saw a flower and it had broken through the concrete. And I just thought, God, isn't that amazing, the way that life always finds a way? And it just always is such a wonderful reminder to look at the detail around you, because there is beauty everywhere. But when we're so locked in being busy and, getting really kind of caught up in a lot of the kind of big, scary stuff that goes on, we can miss that. And so that's always a great thing to bring, that I constantly try and bring myself back to, is, just go outside, even if it's just for 10 minutes, and go for a walk and just go and have a look around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. It's such solid advice and so easy and so totally free. You don't have to make big plans to go on a walk.
Exactly. You don't need any equipment. You don't need special clothing, unless you really want to go, I need special walking clothing. But just go outside. And it's funny because I know we talked about, a tiny bit about the fact that, I've got kids and it's been a bit of a tough week because sometimes it is because like both of them have been sick. One's 16 and one's 7. But one of the really nice things, especially when they're younger, is that they're just so in the moment. And I think that being in the moment is something that I am constantly trying to bring myself back to, because I'm somebody who spends a lot of time, either up in the clouds or, I'm very engaged with politics and activism and things like that. And 2016 hasn't been the most optimistic year. So that kind of bringing yourself back to just the present, just the right now, just what's going on right now, right this second. What can you see? What can you touch? What can you feel? That's that kind of constant necessity, I think.
Yeah, and the grounding that comes with it, and just allowing yourself just to be, and like you're saying, and feel, and what can you touch here, and what is this moment like, as opposed to worrying about whatever else might be out there.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about what you do as far as coaching and mindfulness, and give us a sense of who you are?
Sure. Yeah, I thought I've done my typical thing of just go complete onto kind of, big, going to talk and people listening have no idea who I am. So my name is Jo Casey and I'm a coach mentor, and I live in the north of England, and I teach people how to build coaching businesses. But so I guess one of the things that I do is kind of business strategy, but actually what I really do is I help people to really step into their own story, their own power, their own sense of leadership, and to build businesses that are an extension of them, rather than it being some kind of cookie cutter, here's the latest kind of trick or hack that's on the market, and to implement things. Because I think one of the things that happens is we see the strategy, we see the thing, we see, we read the book that tells us all the steps. And I think this applies to, whether you're running a business or whether, whatever you're doing. And you can follow it at first, and then at some point your own stuff comes up, usually around fear or around, that just doesn't feel authentic, that I feel fake when I'm doing that. That feels up. And so you freeze, you stop doing it. And so one of the big areas that I work with people on is kind of, unpacking that, and let's kind of look at, what's holding you back? Let's find a way to make this work for you so that you can keep going. You can keep taking the steps towards what it is that you're wanting. So it's this real mix of, yes, there is some kind of business strategy in there, but basically I'm a life coach for coaches, but don't tell anyone. So I help people to build coaching businesses.
Yeah.
And I run workshops and kind of training courses. So I train coaches, and I run mindfulness, which kind of makes me laugh because in some ways I'm the least mindful person that I know. I'm not, and I came to it kicking and screaming. I came to it because 4 or 5 years ago, when I was working in my day job, my organization needed somebody to train in doing it, and I was like the only person. And I was like, I've tried that meditation stuff before, it does not work, I cannot empty my mind. And I went along to this 8-week training course. It's like a couple of hours a week. It's not like 8 till 8 every day, but it's a couple of hours a week. So I had to mindfulness, which is based on the kind of modern techniques that kind of incorporates a lot of cognitive behavioral therapy, and found it really challenging, but really intriguing. But found some huge personal benefits from it, and also saw it happening to people who were in the group with me. And so I then went on and kind of did it for a second time, and took up mindfulness as a practice. And it's really great, and it's really simple, and it's free, and it can have some real powerful impacts. And you don't need like a special meditation room like Oprah has or something. If you want one, that's great. But you could do it sat in your car. You could do it, I do kind of 10 minutes in the morning and then maybe 15 minutes of an evening, and you're kind of done. It has some real huge benefits. And that's a real kind of cool, unexpected part of my business. I didn't expect that would be a way that I earn money. And it's just a really cool way of doing it. Like I say, I go to factories and teach people to do it. It's great.
I love that. Yeah.
I know.
Who would have guessed? I mean, it's so helpful to everyone. I mean, knowing a little bit about it myself, but getting to teach it to people who maybe wouldn't think of it as something that's accessible, or that maybe they would just dismiss because it's so, I'll use air quotes around, it's out there, right? Like, how is it received when they kind of catch on as to what you're teaching?
Well, I think the fact that, so I was booked to do 3 days over 3 months in a factory on the Scottish coast. So this isn't even, this is a fairly rural place. It's not like an urban and a city, and you think people may well have, maybe they're doing yoga and things like that. So this was a group of mainly men. They were like 90. I think there's one woman in their boiler suits and their big boots. They hadn't been told what the course was, and I rock up, and their HR manager, also a woman, had been on a mindfulness course and thought they all really need this, so I'm going to book it. But I think the way that I approach it is very much kind of like this. I share the fact that, I came to it kicking and screaming. It's not what you think. There will be no incense. There will be no chanting. You don't have to sit cross-legged on the floor unless you really want to. And let's just give it a go. And I tell people a little bit about the theory and the benefits of it, and then give them a chance to kind of practice it in a really small way. And then we do a longer meditation, and then I give them some really practical things that they can do, like going for a mindful walk and things like that. And it goes down really well. Really well. Yeah, it's great. And there was one in the middle of this longer meditation that I was doing, and we were literally doing it on the factory floor, on the production line floor.
Wow.
I looked out and saw this group of like 20 burly blokes, proper guys, all sat with their eyes closed, like, oh, this is brilliant. I can't believe I get paid to do this.
So wonderful. Yeah.
It was great. Absolutely great. Yeah.
And I love that you have the mindfulness of like really taking in the scene. Like, there's such a presence in being like, wow, this moment is amazing. And yeah. I led a meditation. I don't know why this just reminded me of like kind of led a meditation at a retreat once. And we happened to be in a room over the kitchen. It was like right before lunch. I don't know why this is coming back, but it was like this kind of, it was so hard to be present because you could smell the food. I mean, like, I guess we really were present because we were taking in the sights and sounds, but it was hard to stay in the meditation when all that was going on.
Yeah, I once ran one when it was the rugby final. Now, I know in the States, rugby isn't a really big thing, but trust me, in the British Isles, so I think it was England had been knocked out and Wales were in the final. And there's a lot of kind of Welsh people not too far from where I live, because it's not too far from Wales. And so it was leading this meditation. You could literally hear people screaming and cheering from the room below.
That's so great.
Yeah. So, and I always approach everything that I do with a lot of good-natured humor. So, there are just times you go, I'm really aware right now about how distracted I am. I'm very mindful of how I really want to be watching that match and know what the score is.
I love it. Oh, that's great. So you mentioned you've been coaching, it sounds like, independently for 4 or 5 years. You mentioned a corporate gig. What has your path to coaching kind of look like?
Oh, okay. So my path to coaching was a great big fat failure at first.
Yeah.
I mean, I say that a little bit tongue in cheek because obviously I'm very personal developing, and now I kind of go, well, there's no failure. There's only feedback. But when I first started coaching, it felt like the universe was giving me a huge amount of feedback because I did my first coach training program 16 years ago. So certainly in England at the time, it was really, really new. There's very few coaches out there. And so I think I did one of the very first training programs that was available. It wasn't a great one. It didn't go into an awful lot of depth. It was basically the GROW model and, questioning skills and things like that. But so I went on this weekend, and then we had, exercise and things that we had to do over the subsequent year. And I absolutely loved it. I just fell in love with it, head over heels. The power of it, the respect the respectfulness of it, because I'd been a corporate trainer for a long time. So, I had an adult education background. And so coming from something from a very teaching perspective is very different coming at a coaching perspective, because coaching is all about, it's kind of certainly, the type of coaching that I'm trained in is very rooted in the idea that the client has all of the answers that they need. Your job is to help them to find them. It's not about teaching them stuff. It's not about telling them stuff. And so I just loved how respectful that was of people. It wasn't about enforcing your own agenda on somebody. It was about really helping them to discover what was the right path, the right solution, the right actions for them. I just loved it. And so I did what I would urge nobody to do. But I quit my job. And I was a single parent with a 6-month-old baby. But I was so convinced that the universe would catch me that I leapt. And about 9 months in, I was in debt. I couldn't make my mortgage payment that month. And I had to kind of go to my dad and say, I've really messed up. Can you help me and bail me out? And it was horrible. It was absolutely horrible, because I had, in hindsight, I had no business experience or knowledge or acumen at all. And I was still learning coaching. So I was trying to do these two really difficult things at once with very little kind of information to piece together as to how to do it. So I was doing the things that my coach school had told me to do, like, send out press releases to the local press and join a BNI group and things. But, I couldn't even do things like explain what coaching was to people, because I was still in that kind of, well, it's just great. It's just amazing. It's just fantastic. And it will change your life. And people kind of back away when you've got that amount of zeal, but you can't explain it tangibly to people. So I ended up, my dad lent me some money to bail me out amazingly. And I spent the next kind of 10 years, maybe. Not all of that kind of, I spent some time obviously paying him back and paying my bills and just kind of finding my feet and paying the debts off and stuff. But I was really, really lucky, because my background was corporate training. And so there's an overlap there with things like corporate coaching. And that was something that I was pushing at an open door when I went and spoke to my manager and said, look, I'm trained in doing this thing called coaching. Have you heard of it? And they're like, yeah, we have. And so they let me start to do some coaching in-house. And I kind of carved out a role for myself as an in-house coach. And then after a few years, I invested in doing my master's degree in coaching. And I also became an NLP practitioner and then a master practitioner. And I eventually was asked to kind of qualify and train and run coach training programs, again, within the organization I was in. And then just kind of started to develop a reputation within I worked in local government, so I wouldn't say industry, but kind of peers in other organizations asked if they could bring me in to run coach training programs for them. And then, which my organization did, I was still under employment there. And then I was going to be laid off, because basically there was lots of government cuts that were coming down the line. And so I started putting feelers out about whether I could do this and kind of get paid for it, and started off very tentatively a part-time coaching business, took on a part-time day job as well, and kind of built it up much more sensibly, much more slowly, but much more sustainably. Because by this point, I was only having to learn the business side of it. I was pretty confident in the coaching side. And, I found some great mentors, fortunately, whereas I think before, mentors at that time were quite kind of thin on the ground. So I'm a big fan of the slow and steady route. I think that the whole, jump and the universe will catch you is fine if it doesn't matter too much if you fall or if you fail. Whereas I think certainly for a lot of women, and, for women with kids as well, it's, the stakes are so high.
Yes.
And, we don't tend, I know some people, but, that kind of amount of pressure is a real motivator for them. But for me, it wasn't. It just sends me into my panic zone, and I can't do great work in my panic zone. I don't know anyone who can. Right.
Yeah. And that's so funny, just kind of going back to your early part of the story. I'm like this. I'm at 12 months of being a certified coach, but Yeah, I've just gone back to taking a job because I'm a project manager by trade in the other part of the world. And like that's paying the bills now because I mean, I kind of see it as the ship going back into the harbor. You know, I'm going to take on some provisions, make repairs and get ready to go back out. There's only so long I can be out there in the waters without, you know, making the income to support.
I mean, that's one of the reasons I get so cross at some of the utter BS that is out there. You know, I see it all the time in my Facebook feeds about, hey, you're a coach, are you making are you having 5-figure months yet? And I'm just screaming at the screen to go, shut up. You can do it. You can have a 6-figure business, even if you have no list and no experience. Shut up. No. Yeah. Maybe one person in 100,000 does that. But, you know, I also have a podcast. So one of the things that it's a really good way. It gives me an excuse to, you know, reach out to people and kind of go, hey, can I talk to you back in, you know, so I can reach out to people I would never dream of approaching. And so I've interviewed some, you know, people who are much further along the line who do have the 6-figure business. And I don't know anybody who did it in less than 2 to 3 years. And for most people, it took them 4 or 5.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and
well, that's where what I see from my standpoint is, you know, and obviously I also have a podcast and I have an online presence and I had a blog for 8 years. So it's not like I'm not out there, but you know, it's not a quick go of it. I don't think. I think you're so right about that.
Yeah. And I think that there's a lot of people who are taking advantage of people, you know, so there are people who are selling programs out there that are like $27,000 and most coaches are making around about $12,000 in their first few years. And so there's part of me just kind of thinks, how can you justify charging somebody twice what they're realistically going to earn? But then, you know, that's where the personal development brigade kind of fall out with me sometimes because it's like, well, you just have to believe it. And that's just your story, isn't it? And you just have to think bigger and there's nothing to say that you can't do it. And
yeah, I will be in the same camp because, the fancy words of manifesting and mindset and all that. Like, I feel like that's a guilt trip waiting to happen. Like, you know?
Yeah, you just don't want it. Yeah. If you just wanted it more. Yeah, it's nothing to do with the fact that this is, you know, you're being sold a bill of goods by so much of this stuff. Yeah, you just don't want it. Yeah. Oh, don't stop me.
That's right. I don't want to bad enough. Nothing could be further than the truth, probably, for most of us that are putting ourselves out there in earnest and being super vulnerable and like just giving our heartfelt, you know, most, even best, all of it. Like, it's so hard to then be told they just wanted it more. Takes a lot.
Yeah, and it's nonsense. Because do you know what else? Once you start, you know, because I have been in the space, in the industry for quite a while. I mean, I'm like a dinosaur in internet terms. And so, you know, every now and then you'll speak to somebody so there's quite a few online business managers who started off as VAs to some of the big hitters. And it's really interesting to talk to them because they give you the kind of behind the scenes of the $100,000 launches, you know, and go, but you know, 75,000 was spent on Facebook ads. And so what the real figures are is if it looks too good to be true, it probably is. And also, I think that in terms of joy and happiness and fulfillment and all of that stuff, we're just laying down a massive kind of failure complex for ourselves because we kind of think, I'm not as thin as that person on Instagram, or my teeth, this is something I say quite a lot, nobody's teeth are as white as they are on the internet. And nobody's business is as successful as it looks on the internet. You know, the 4-hour work week. There is, you know, great title for a book, great concept, but the rest of us who are working like 50, 60 hours a week. Yeah.
Or like,
what am I doing wrong?
Darn, you're too embarrassed.
Yes.
Totally agree.
Yeah. And it's about, you know, having that, and I hate the word, the kind of balance is so overused, but it's about balancing, you know, you need to feed and nourish yourself physically and emotionally and spiritually. And, you know, there ain't nothing wrong with taking a job to give you a rest from that stress and that angst of, how am I going to pay the bills this month? Because there's nothing worse.
Yeah.
We just need to give ourselves a break and have a bit more reality of what life is. Whether we're
Totally
talking
agree.
business or whether we're talking just generally, nobody is gloriously happy all the time, just like nobody's gloriously successful overnight. But we kind of half convince ourselves that that's true. Other people are. Other people are happy all the time,
Yeah. Well, and that's one of the interesting things with having like joy as a, kind of a platform for the show is, I mean, you either get that thing of like, what is it around, joy is naive, or it's like kind of a thin thing, or like it's, a Pollyanna-ish kind of place to be, which I don't actually agree with obviously at all. I think it's one of the hardest choices to make, but also that thing of like, you see other people and you think, oh, well, they're just happy all the time. But I think, this is kind of, I guess, full circle even. It comes back to being mindful and making a choice to follow joy. And, when we can jump in there, it's kind of a fun topic there. Oh. But yeah, it's a lot of work being happy all the time, even if you want to try it. It's hard.
It is. I'm sorry, I just pulled my earpiece out. I was going to try and just cover it up and just play really, really cool there, but I think I just went, as I did it. I don't do cool. But I love that whole conversation around, so that Brene Brown thing about, we forego joy. We're like, when we hedge our bets and we try and convince ourselves we don't want something.
Yeah.
Because we're trying to, protect ourselves from the disappointment or or that feeling of that kind of bittersweet feeling when, you look at your kid or you look at your sweetheart or something that's really, really precious, and actually sit in that place of, God, I love this person so much, or I'm so happy right now, also opens the door to but what if it goes away? It's, that's always there. And I think we have to be able to sit in that place sometimes. And I think you're right. It is one of the most courageous things to do, to open yourself up to joy. Mm-hmm. And it's that letting go of the need to be cool as well.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I am kind of one of those naturally bubbly people that probably irritates some other folks, but
I thought you were going to say I'm one of those naturally cool people, and I was like, oh no,
not naturally cool. No. And I'll come clean. I realized when I got to work today that there was, it's California, but avocado all over my sweater. What the heck? Like, that's not cool. I managed to get all the way to the office like that, Joe. Oh my gosh. Secrets revealed here on the podcast. But yeah, no, I'm just kind of naturally happy. And I think some people, I've even had coaching around it, which is, I'm laughing about that.
You've had coaching about the fact that you're too happy?
Well, no, is it too much? Like that whole idea of like, when is it too much? And I think exactly what you're saying, like that then I play a different role because I pull back from being the naturally bubbly version of myself because I think people don't take it seriously. So that's that's the fuller version of that story.
Oh, right. I see. I get you. Yeah. I get you.
But it is vulnerable, I think, deeply vulnerable to just kind of either admit you are that joyous about something or that you love something that much or like anything that's one of those extreme emotions, I think is where I don't know if that's where you're headed, but kind of sounds
it is. And I think we have all these kind of unwritten rules that society gives us.
Yeah.
About, it's obviously there are different subtle kind of traps for men and women. So men have to be strong all the time. And, and for women, we have to be good and we have to be not too loud and not too big and not too opinionated and not too, and we have to be caring and we have to be really kind and never be selfish. Don't be selfish, whatever you do. So sometimes it's really difficult to say, I really love this. I really want it. It's just for me and I'm going to do it. Yeah. Because that can feel really kind of selfish and, or if I'm too happy, will that make other people feel bad because they're not having good things going on for them? And so we have this one eye on how this is going to affect other people as well. It's tricky. There are lots of, it should be simple. It's one of those things you kind of think, well, yeah, if you can get the option to feel joy, then why not? Just go for the joy. But it's really not that simple.
Yeah, I like this angle too, because it hasn't shown up on the show before about like how people might put the shoulds on what they should go for that makes them feel joyful, because it could, like you're saying, it could have an impact, or does it really? I would argue that you kind of have to be able to embody the joy or have the oxygen before you can then help somebody else. But
we do have this, I think, this idea that particularly as women, we should put other people first and that the stuff that we want somehow is secondary. But I think, in this idea of kind of toning down your joy in case it upsets somebody else, it's like, well, emotions are contagious.
Yes, they are.
It's really difficult to be around somebody who's genuinely calm and joyful and can see the good in life. It's genuinely hard to be around someone like that and not for some of it to rub off. I suppose what one not so helpful aspect that we have in personal development is the I call them the positive thinking brigade. So there's the whole kind of, well, just think positive, it'll all be fine. No, sometimes it won't be fine, and you've got to acknowledge it and you've got to deal with it. And the nerdy part of me now wants to share some of the research with you about why that even is scientifically proven not to work and all of that stuff. But I won't, because but you can look that up. It's totally true. It's this idea that, just slap a smile on, it will all be fine. Push it down, all those negative emotions. And I'm British, our whole culture is based on that. Especially any big emotions. But that's very different from if somebody is genuinely able to see the joy in life. So, and what my experience with mindfulness has told me, and my kind of personal development generally, is that actually happiness and joy are more often than not found in those small moments. And being able to appreciate those small moments, like the fact that the feel of sunshine on your skin, or having 5 minutes just enjoy a really nice cup of tea, or just it's like my daughter's been off sick all week for school, so she's had this real kind of hacking chesty cough and high temperature and things. But for the past couple of days, the temperature is gone, so she's feeling better in herself, but she's still coughing. So today we sat on the sofa. I had let go of I'd let go of my frustration, the fact that I'd got so little work done. I'm going to have to do so much over the weekend to catch up. And we watched Mary Poppins. And she's never seen Mary Poppins. And she loved it. And her little face. And that was joyful. Yeah. There was no, there was no kind of jumping up and down, but there was just one point where I just kind of looked over and my legs were right next. She had her toes resting on my legs and a blanket over her. I just got this wave of, the sweetness, this is what it's about. Mm-hmm. Not the $100,000 launches and stuff like that.
No, right? Yeah. And being able to soak in that moment and just kind of feel its joy. So gorgeous, because it'd be so easy just to skip over some of those tiny moments.
Yeah.
Or be in your phone, or for me at least, or whatever it is. Yeah.
Yeah. There's many a time. I'm far from perfect on this. There's many a time where I'll be cooking dinner. I'll be at the same time checking emails on my phone. And my daughter's a real extrovert as well. So she talks non-stop in the loveliest, most delightful way. But that gets wearing after a while. And I'm an introvert. So I'm somebody who, I do my thinking on the inside. And I struggle to understand why other people can't do that sometimes. So she'll be talking away and I'm trying to cook dinner. I'm not the world's greatest cook. I don't enjoy it. So I'm cooking dinner and I'm checking my emails and I can hear her going, "You're not listening, are you?" And I'm not. I'm not tuned into what she's saying. And that is a real kind of bring myself up short moment, because it's time to put down the phone. I've been known to even turn off the pan and turn to her and actually give her some focused time, because she's never going to be 7 again.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. My son is 6.
Sorry, go on.
Oh, no, I was going to say my son is 6, and there's that same thing where it's so tempting to go and check the email or Facebook or whatever. But kind of pulling myself out to realize, well, this moment is only here once, and he's only 6 once, and he's only going to say these ridiculous, cute, amazing things. Like the other day he called Taco Bell Cowbell. Like he mixed up these, which is a restaurant chain, but it's called a cowbell. And like my husband and I are like, cowbell? Like we just died laughing. We're like, we're gonna go eat a cowbell. All right. Anyway, but yeah, you were saying you have a 16-year-old.
Yeah, but it feels, it really does feel like yesterday that he was 7, and he was a a much quieter kid. We used to do Legos together and stuff. And now he's 6'1" and he has a girlfriend with pink hair, and he's at college, and he barely talks to me because, I'm his mum, so why would he talk to me? I know nothing in his world. And there's a real kind of, I'm immensely proud of him. I look at him every day and kind of go, wow, look at you, you're turning into a man. But there's a sadness there too, because he's never going to be 7 again.
Yeah.
And so that's a really good reminder for me to appreciate the moments that I do have with him, which in all honesty is usually when I'm driving him somewhere, but also to really appreciate a bit more those moments with my daughter, even though sometimes I might be a bit strung out, or I might be trying to do 3 things at once, and just kind of say, no, stop. Yeah. You will never get this moment back. Stop. Soak it in.
I love that. Yeah. Just soaking that in. That's so good. That's good stuff. Yeah, I know maybe we change gears a little bit. I don't know if we want to jump into, how do people approach maybe mindfulness in the new year? Kind of, since we've just changed that, is there a great way to, change gears after all this stuff that we've been through in 2016? How do we approach this new space in a new way and maybe set the tone for joy or peace or contentment that we haven't seen as much as maybe we like?
Now you're asking. But I do think there's something about, we need to be centered and grounded ourselves so that we can start to hear other people, even when that is really difficult. I think that's one of the questions that I'm wrestling with myself, because obviously one of the issues with the election in the US and with Brexit in the UK, and I think so many of those kind of horrible things is we're very divided, and it's been such a shock because we are living in these kind of bubbles, and I think we need to move out of those bubbles. And right now that's almost beyond uncomfortable. It's almost painful, and it's I don't want to talk to people who are openly racist. I don't want to talk to them. Yeah. And then part of me kind of thinks, no, I still don't think I want to talk to them. But then there are also a whole load of other people who have maybe not as extreme opinions, but opinions that are still very different from me, outlooks that are still very different from me. And we need to find ways of being able to appreciate them, appreciate difference a bit more. I think one of the things that certainly is for me, someone who is, on the left politically, is that I think we have this idea that we're really tolerant. That's one of the things that we really value is tolerance and difference. And yet one of the challenges is going to be, well, can we not just tolerate, can we build bridges? Can we understand people who right now we feel very betrayed by, we feel very angry towards, and we feel very superior towards because, hell, we're not the guy who voted for, the bullying, misogynist, racist. And I think we need to it's another layer of work we need to do on ourselves. And so one of the types of meditation that I'm going to a lot at the moment is loving kindness. So it's this idea that when you're focusing on giving love and kindness and understanding you start off with somebody who you love anyway. It's really easy to kind of sit and think of them and kind of wish them love and wish them well and wish them health and wish them, peace and things. And then to yourself, because that's really difficult to give ourselves that love and that forgiveness and that understanding and wish ourselves well. And then to people we feel neutral around. So, whether you think of the postman, bless him, he gets quite a lot of my love and kindness attention. And then to the people that we find a bit trickier, to the people we find a bit more difficult. And I think unless we can start doing that, first of all, it's really helpful because it lets go of some of that kind of fear and that anxiety and that tension. But also I think we can start to see the things where we are similar. And, so Brexit and the US election have been very similar in terms of some of the themes and some of the emotions that have come out, a lot of xenophobia, a lot of kind of fear of the other being stoked up, really, really not. And I can go to a really scary place with all of that really quickly. What's going to happen if?
Right.
And I think the only way that we can do this is, yes, we have some lines around, no, that's not acceptable. That's not going to happen. And we need to step into our courage to do that. But then we also need to recognize that, an awful lot of people who voted for Brexit, an awful lot of people who voted for Trump, I would say the majority, aren't consciously or even actually racist or xenophobic. They have concerns. They're fearful. Yes, there are a small and very vocal minority who are, right. But the majority of people, they didn't. And so we have to find ways of having better conversations with people who have different opinions to us. We just have to. And that's just something I'm thinking about a lot right now, because I've realized that, I can be proper sanctimonious when I want to be,
Yeah.
And that's not getting us anywhere.
Right.
And so for me, this idea of how can I kind of take my understanding, not just to people who I kind of think, if somebody's from a different culture, I really want to understand them. That's kind of easier in a way, I think, for some of us, certainly on the left. Mm-hmm. But, can I have love and understanding for those people who maybe voted Brexit or voted Trump? That's the real challenge. That's the real test for us. So that's kind of what I'm leaning into at the moment. And it's tricky. It's difficult.
It is really tricky. Yeah, because as you were saying that, I think there is, in being a liberal as well, I would like to think that I'm open to all people and all mindsets and all things. But then you're right. Then applying that on to, and I don't want to list out specific things because, not really a political topic per se, but then applying that to some of the more right side, what do we call that? Right thinking it's hard because it feels like some of it is stuff that the liberals have been fighting for so long. But then seeing what that means to other people who hold those ideals dear, there's a reason they are holding it dear. And so I think you're right. Like, how do we listen to each other and how do we approach it with love instead of either dismissal or anger or, worse, hate or something beyond that? I don't know many liberals that then go to the hate extreme, but maybe there's some. I guess there are, but I'm not one of them. I'm more of the pacifist, I guess, but yeah.
Yeah, me too. But I think where it tends to happen, what I've noticed in myself anyway, and, from what some of the evidence seems to be suggesting what happened during both the elections is we're just not engaging with those people at all. So we're just not having conversations with people who have different points of view. I don't read right-wing newspapers. I don't tend to hang out with people who have right-wing views. But that means that maybe I don't understand their fears and where they're coming from. And that does not mean we then have to justify, how kind of white guy anger and all of that stuff, because, hell to the no for that.
Right. Yeah. Well, and I guess, so thank you for sharing that loving kindness meditation. I think that is a really nice place to start because it does focus on the person, meaning yourself, but it also then it's challenging in its own quiet way of putting that, wishing those same good and loving thoughts to someone who may be trickier for an individual to find love or kindness for. Yeah.
Uh-huh. And I wouldn't say, go to the, I wouldn't say, you would have to be a pretty evolved person right now to kind of be sat there kind of wishing Trump himself loving kindness. I wouldn't say go to that extreme, but maybe go for your mother-in-law who voted for him or something.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, then you can push it a little further each time too. I think it's growing. It's something to grow with for sure.
Yeah.
So what else? If people wanted to listen into your podcast, where can they find you? What else have you got going on in 2017?
So I've got. So my podcast is called the Work Happy Coaching Podcast, and it's a really nice place to nerd out on coaching. So if coaching is your thing, then I love having just great conversations around coaching. I do kind of solo episodes where I kind of share strategies or get on my soapbox about things, but I also enjoy having some really good conversations around coaching and building a coaching business, particularly for women. And then people can work with me, if you are a coach and you're looking to build a coaching business, then by all means check out my website, joecasey.com. And have a listen to the podcast, see if I'm a good fit for you, because there is something so powerful about working with somebody one-on-one to help you accelerate that pace and lay down some of those foundational pieces around things like, what's your message and who do you work with and how do you find those people, and what's a good kind of business model for you to have to make sure that it's sustainable for you. And then I'm planning on doing a kind of a longer group program, maybe mid 2017, maybe with a retreat. I've got this desire to kind of do something in person with a group. I'm very into community and building community. And
wonderful. I agree. There's something about community and getting to know other people who are in a similar spot, or community group work is always fun. So do you have time for 2 last questions?
Yes, of course. Yeah.
Yay! Okay. So how do you maintain balance in your life with your family and your work and all of that? Or maybe the better way of putting it is like, what does harmony look like for you?
I prefer the harmony one. I have no balance.
Yeah.
Ebbs and flows. I prefer to talk about it in terms of ebbs and flows, because that's just how it goes. Like this week, case in point, my daughter was sick, and my son was sick. Actually, they both had 2 totally different things. And my husband works, has a job, goes out to an office, which is a 90-minute commute each way. So he didn't get in till late. And so I'm fortunate that I have a business that I can be flexible about in a certain way, but it also means that stuff still needs to get done. And so there's been a lot of evening work this week, and I will be doing work over the weekend because I need to catch up to keep on top of things. But I also have kind of some hard boundaries over things, like I don't do any client calls on a Friday. So I pick my daughter up from school on a Friday. So on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, she goes to a childminder who picks her up from school. So she goes there for a couple of hours, so I can kind of do a more kind of 9 to 5 day. But 3 p.m. on a Friday, I pick her up. Quite often she'll have a friend back from school. We'll go to the park on the way home. That's our time. I don't do any work generally now over a weekend anymore. Again, that's a hard boundary, apart from one Sunday evening slot, just because of the way that I work in terms of time differences and things like that. If you're on the West Coast in the US, pretty much the only time our schedules will match will be of an evening. And if you have a day job, which some coaches do. So I have one slot on a Sunday evening for me. So I have some hard boundaries. I'm getting better at that. And then I'm also really lucky in the fact that I get to make, I think, more choices around my business than I would do if I was in a corporate job. And certainly when I did in my, I work in an organization, but, now working for myself, whilst I have all of the responsibility, I also have a lot more choice. And so I can shift my message. I can have more choice over who I work with. And the reason that's important is I get to define and to choose the kind of activities and the type of work that I find most nourishing. And I think that's really important. So I don't, so there's very few parts of my business that I kind of go, ugh, I've got to do that thing. Apart from my bookkeeping and my accounts. That's about it. But, when it comes to working with clients, one of the things that I love, and I love talking to other people about, is the fact that, you can design this any way you want to. Yeah. So why not design it in a way that's going to work best for you, whilst recognizing it will evolve. So give it a chance to evolve. So I think it's important to have a good balance of structure and space, so that there's, I might get an idea and go, it's like at the moment, I've got this hankering to do something in person, maybe a retreat. I don't know what that feels or looks like yet, but I'm going to be working on it so it can evolve. And I get the freedom to do that. And that I find really enriching and nourishing.
Yeah, I love that. And that you're able to focus on what you want it to be and how you want it to feel and what you want your life to look like. That's amazing. I love it.
I mean, that being said, it also has to be balanced with the fact that, is this something people are going to want? Will they pay me money for it? So, it's not just like, I'm going to do a body painting workshop next year. And it's like, well, that's really
right.
nice, Joe, but your audience are coaches. How will that fit in? It has to kind of be,
right.
I'm lucky that, I happen to absolutely love what I do, and people, there is a need for it, I guess. Oh, sorry, I've just knocked something over from my desk.
Okay.
That's really noisy on your podcast.
No, it's all right. That is wonderful. Okay, and so my last question is always, what are 3 ways that you can think of to jumpstart joy in your life, in the world, or in other people's lives?
Say thank you. I mean, really, say thank you. Tell people that you appreciate them, and tell them how, and tell them why. And that goes back to my kind of corporate days when, giving good feedback, and it has to be specific and it has to be timely. But actually, that thing of when you tell somebody, oh my God, you look gorgeous today, that dress is amazing. And the look on their face if you say that, just kind of out of the blue, tell people, give people that kind of that timely feedback. If you're thinking, God, doesn't she look great? Then say, God, you really look great. Or if you think, oh, that was really nice what she just did, then say it. And it's something that I really try and practice with my kids and my husband, but I suspect I'm not nearly very good at it with my husband. But I do try. I should do it more. I will do it more. So certainly that's one for other people. Another thing is to remind yourself regularly of what you're grateful for. It's really easy to get focused on all the stuff on your to-do list that you haven't got done yet, all the things that have gone wrong, all the things that, you're worried about. They're real. That, it's not about denying them, but also about spending some time each day focusing in on the things that you're grateful for, the things that have gone well. There's loads of research out there about how powerful this is. This isn't a kind of just think positive type thing. This has a real shift in the way that we start to view the world. If you can just, make a conscious note of 5 things each day. And that's something that I started practicing a few years ago, and it is really impactful. And then I think the other thing is to give yourself permission to be human and be imperfect, and take some of the pressure off yourself. I think one of the things that we have, particularly if you're working in I was going to say particularly in the online space, but no, I don't think that's true. I think it's just the world that we have right now. We have so many images of perfection, which are total BS because, they're airbrushed, or they're, there's only selective reality that we see on social media from people, or we may see the person in our company who's just won the award because they landed the big project, but we didn't see the 14-hour days that they were putting in for, and all the weekends that they worked to do it. And so we can get into this real comparisonitis with things. And so I think we all need to be a bit kinder to ourselves, because if we were kinder to ourselves, then maybe we could be a bit kinder to other people as well. And if we just had a bit more kindness in the world, I think everything would be that bit easier and that bit more joy filled.
I agree. Thank you, Joe Casey. This has just been wonderful. I am so grateful to have had you on the show. Thank you for taking the time.
I am so grateful that you asked me. It's been a joy.
It has. Thank you.